webinar for the 2025 Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge application cycle. My name is Reva Ramadorai. I'm the director of the Thermo Fisher JIC and joined by my colleague Alex Grace. I'm sure you've received many emails from both of us so far this spring, and we are excited that we are only 2 days away from the application deadline. So on today's webinar, we're going to go through some frequently asked questions to hopefully help y'all get any of those last minute questions as you finish up your applications, or if you just get started. We'll share some advice from our alumni, and then we'll walk through quickly a sample application together, again, to show you that even if you've just opened your application today or maybe yesterday, that it's still very doable if you manage your time wisely. So we'll point out, our tips and tricks to get that application turned in the next couple days. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, and I'll also mention, feel free to ask your questions in the live chat. Alex and I will be answering them throughout the webinar, but also set aside some time at the very end to go through those questions with y'all as we're live. If you have a question we haven't gotten to it yet, don't worry, we're going to look through all of them. You don't need to submit it a bunch of times. And if we don't get to your questions today, you can always email us at jic@societyforscience.org, and we will absolutely be getting back to you before that application deadline. We have several staff checking that email all hours, basically, between now and then. So with that, we will get started. All right, so just a really quick overview of what the Thermo Fisher JIC is. If you've just been nominated and gotten emails from us and don't know what you're potentially signing up for, it is a premier STEM research competition for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students in the United States. There's an online application that is due in a couple days. And you're completing that application for a chance to be selected as a top 300 junior innovator, which is sort of like the semifinalist stage, or a top 30 finalist. To learn more about what each of those stages mean, what all of the prizes we have available are, you can look at some of our past webinars from this cycle. If you go to our YouTube page, which you're all on, if you go to our channel, you'll see all of those webinars there for you.
All right, so if you are going into the application, the first thing you will do is enter in your FAIR password. This is something that the FAIR that nominated you should have given you. If you don't have it, you can email us with the name of the FAIR that you were nominated at and where it was. But if you do try to enter a password and it says that the password wasn't valid, what you can do is email us again, jic@societyforscience.org. Tell us who nominated you, and we can help you figure that out and get into the application.
Another question that we often get is, what should I do if my school is not listed? So you want to email us at jic@societyforscience.org. In that email, you can tell us the name of your school and send us the school's mailing address. We'll then verify that information and add it to our school database. And then we'll send you a confirmation email. Sometimes it takes about 10 to 15 minutes from the time we update it to the time it shows up on the list. So give it a couple minutes or 10 to 15, and it should show up for you. But it's very quick and easy. So definitely email us if your school is not listed. We are happy to add that for you.
Having any trouble uploading your forms or your visual aid, we need to make sure that the documents you're uploading are in PDF format. Our system will not accept JPEGs, Word documents, or the JIC files you get if you take a photo with your phone. So you need to convert whatever file type you do have to a PDF before you can upload them in our system. You can Google convert to PDF for many websites, and many websites will show up that can help you with this conversion from whatever file type you're coming from. If you don't have a scanner at home, we recommend taking a picture of your document with a smartphone. There are some applications called Scanner. You can download that on iPhone or Android, and those will take those pictures and directly make them PDFs for you. Then you can upload those into our system and just use your name in the document titles Don't use emojis in the document name because you won't be able to see those in our system.
Science fair paperwork. So we know that there are often a lot of questions about what forms you actually need to submit. So the main rule of thumb here is that you should upload any form that you filled out for your local science fair. So sometimes your local science fair might use their Agenda on ISEF forms. They might have their own equivalent type of these forms, particularly if you've done research that involves human participants or potentially hazardous biological agents, vertebrate animals. These are just some of the examples that sometimes require paperwork at your local fair. Whatever you submitted for your local fair is what we want to see in this section of the application. Other than an abstract or a research plan, we're going to get all that information from your application, so you don't need to upload those files. But any other forms, even if they're general generic forms, you can upload those in Part 6 of the application. If you did submit forms to your local science fair, but you don't have access to those forms anymore, what you can do is ask the adult that approved your project to write a letter describing what approval process you went through for your local fair and what safety precautions you took. Ultimately, with this section, what we're looking for is making sure that you were safe while you conducted your research project. There are a lot more questions in Part 6. We'll talk about them in just a few minutes as well. If you have specific questions about what forms you need to complete, email us at jic@societyforscience.org, and we'll answer those on a case-by-case basis.
So, may I submit a different project than the one I was nominated for? You must submit the same project that earned you the Thermo Fisher JIC nomination at your local fair. You cannot change your hypothesis, experimental design, or any other core elements of your project. You can repeat additional trials of trials you've already conducted to obtain more data. You shouldn't be conducting new tests or trying new variables that you didn't try before bringing that project to your local fair. You're welcome to change your project title from your local fair to the application, but the core of your project, the research you conducted, the prototype you built should not differ from the one that won you your nomination at your local fair.
Yes, and I'll add on to that to say that we do have a question in the application under conclusions that where you can just describe any future improvements or future ideas you have for your project. We know a lot of you might have competed at your local fair a few months ago and have already been working on, iterations and improvements. You can talk about those in that section, but the primary basis of the information as to what you're, completing in the application should be about the same project that earned you the nomination. So we also often get questions about the visual aid. We don't share any examples of the visual aid because they really vary by project. So it's your job to take all of the visuals you might have had on your science fair poster board and put those into a 2-page document. The visual aid must be a PDF of a regular size sheet of paper. We recommend keeping it to about 3 to 4 graphics per page for visibility. That's not a hard and fast rule. That's the recommendations, but everything is clearly legible. You want to make sure that all the information on your visual aid is clearly readable at 100% zoom. So no one should need to really zoom in to the fine print to see, all the details of your visual aid. The caveat I'll make to that is captions or citations. We'll talk about citations in a minute. Citations can be a smaller font, but your visual aid should be readable at 100% zoom. This aid can include anything from figures, charts, tables of your data, graphs, anything that represents your methodology or particularly your data analysis that is important for the evaluators and judges to see as they're reading through your application. Every figure new for this year must be cited in your visual aid So even if you are the one that created those data tables or graphs, you can just add a little note to say this image is created by the researcher. Then we know that's taken care of. If you've grabbed that image from an external source like a website, you can just link the website on the visual aid. Those are the only links that are okay, right? So only citation links are acceptable. You should not be including any links to more information about your project. So no videos, no QR codes that might take you to another research plan or website. Um, all of those will not be allowed for the visual aid.
Great. The application is due on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so 2 days from today. You must submit if you submit before June 11th, you can go back into your account and make edits. What you can do is if you're looking at a task, there's 3 dots in the right-hand corner, click on that, and then you have an option to edit. Some folks have been having some glitches with that in the last couple of days. If you are having issues reopening a part of your application, you can email us at jic@societyforscience.org and we can help you reopen the application, the parts that you need to be reopened, but take a shot at reopening it first before emailing us. But once you work on an element of your project, make sure you hit mark as complete for each task that you edit. All the tasks must be filled out and marked as complete to be a fully submitted project. And if you have a team project, each team member must submit separate applications and answer each of the questions individually. We understand there's going to be quite a bit of overlap with your project summary and your visual aid, but when you're talking about the project, you should each be writing about your own contributions and be writing about the project independently and in your own words.
To elaborate on that just a little bit in terms of more information for team projects, like Alex said, the abstract project summary question and visual aids can be the same. And what I want to highlight is that not all teammates have to apply. So if you are a team of 2 or 3 and you're the only one in your team that wants to apply to the competition, that's perfectly fine. The other teammates do not have to apply for you to be eligible. You should still include those teammates' name in part 1 of the application where we ask if this was a team project. And you should also describe your teammates' contribution to the project in part 3. There's a specific question for teams there as well. All right. So in a minute, we're going to walk through the application, but I'm going to stop my screen share now and turn it over to Alex. And as Alex gets set up, oh, perfect. Go ahead, Alex.
Hello, Thermo Fisher JIC nominees. Congratulations for being nominated to the Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge, the nation's premier STEM research competition for middle school students. You have traveled this far after school, district, regional, and/or state science fairs, and you have earned yourself a great honor to be among the top 10% of middle schoolers in your state. Now it is time for you to shine at the national competition by showcasing your amazing work with your JIC application. I wish you the best of luck in completing the application and have lots of fun.
Hey Innovators, and first of all, congratulations on applying to this year's Thermo Fisher JIC. I decided to apply last year because this is first of all a great place for you to gain experience about talking and writing about your work and your experiments. And second of all, as I mentioned before, this is a great platform for you to talk about your work with other people.
It wasn't always about winning, as I got to learn something new every single day. I also got to meet a lot of new people and build meaningful relationships with others. I got a lot of valuable feedback from both the scientific community and my peers on my project.
Congratulations on being nominated to apply for Thermo Fisher JIC. You've created something incredible, and now you have the chance to share your work on a much larger scale. During finals week, I loved discussing my research with everyone from renowned scientists to small children. I met amazing people, became good friends with other young scientists from around the country, and had so much fun.
Finals week is so amazing. You meet so many cool people who love STEM, and I'm still in touch with them today. It's always worth it to give something new a shot, so finish that application and go for it.
Although the application may seem a little overwhelming at first, just write from the heart. You know your research best, and the application is a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate what you've accomplished. The Thermo Fisher JIC community is amazing, and I hope you will become part of it by completing your application. Good luck!
I never thought I'd be a finalist or even be nominated. Going one step further in applying to the Junior Innovators Challenge is a great way to put yourself out there and try something new. My advice for the applications is don't stress. You've already made it here, and you know your project super well.
And my advice to anybody trying to apply to Thermo Fisher would be to break the application down into small, manageable chunks. I know it's a very long and very daunting form, but in the end, the progress and the accomplishment for completing it and getting into the competition is so great, and I would definitely recommend applying.
For my biggest pieces of advice, first, it does sound a bit cliche, but talking about your interests and your hobbies in a genuine manner really does help these judges understand and connect with your application more. And second of all, a big one for me is keeping it simple. For me and a lot of judges, being able to take these complex topics and breaking them down into easy and simple to read sentences is extremely impressive. So congratulations once again, and I hope you do know that the work you're doing is so incredibly impressive.
Start your application as soon as possible so that you have the most amount of time to complete it. Share the story of why your project is meaningful to you, because having a personal connection will make your project stand out. And remember, you have nothing to lose by applying, but there's so much to gain.
All right, so hopefully you all enjoyed hearing from some of our alumni about their advice for completing the application and why they think you should apply. It is a really meaningful experience, even just completing the application. So we hope that if you're on the fence, that this webinar and their words of wisdom help push you to the finish line. So with that, if you are in the case of just opening an application today or in the past couple of days, we're going to walk through a sample application now and talk through some of the questions to hopefully just give you more confidence as you go through it to get you to apply by the Wednesday deadline. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is the application homepage. Hopefully it looks a little familiar by now. On it, you have important documentation. If you want a written guide for how to open the application up, you can get that here. We have links to our resources page, which we'll talk about in a second as well. All of these things are good to highlight now in case you need questions answered. At all hours of the night. We are on the East Coast, so we can't check email too late, but we'll be back to answer questions in the morning. We have our important dates here, so you know what to look forward to for the rest of the cycle. And of course, our email and another page on our website that has some helpful information for our nominees. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come up to the top and you're going to hit the green register button. This will create an account for you or navigate you to the page to create an account. I want to highlight here, if you haven't already, we do not recommend, if you haven't opened an application already, we do not recommend using a school email address or signing up via social media with this link here. Sometimes school emails can block any emails coming from the application system. You don't want that to happen. If you're an 8th grader or if you're moving schools next year, you might lose access to that school email account. So we recommend using a personal email address. That can be one of your parent or guardian's email address as well. That's perfectly fine. If you do run into any issues where you aren't getting our emails, there is a way to edit that. We'll talk about that once we open the application. But do email us at jic@societyforscience.org if you need help with that. For creating an account, you're going to need to enter your first name, your last name, that email address here. The password that you're going to enter here is your own password that you make up. It is not your favorite password. So this can be anything at all that you would like your password to be. Then you'll hit create an account. If you've applied to the Thermo Fisher JIC before, you might already have an existing account. You can skip over this register part and just go into login. If you don't remember your password, you can use the forgot password link to gain access to your old account, and then you'll open up a new application from there. So I've already logged into a test account here. If you have just opened an account, you might see a green verify your email address button up at the top. You need to have your email address verified in order to submit the application. Now, if you, for example, had that school email address and you keep hitting this button to send the confirmation link and you're not getting it, one, check your spam folders. It might be sitting in there for you. Two, you can whitelist an IP address. You can email us about that. We can help give that to you so that your school unblocks our emails or our email account. And three, you can also change your email address. So if you want to change your email address, you can go up to your account page here. And this is where you can change your email address. It'll ask you to do a confirmation. If you have any trouble with this, let us know. We can help you out. But we want to make sure this isn't going to stop you from completing your application. All right, I'm going to go back to the My Applications page. If you're opening an account for the first time, you'll actually land on this Programs page. This just has a little bit of general information about this year's application. Then you'll want to go down here, and this will be a Start button. So you'll click on Start. Since I've already opened it, I'm going to click on More. And you'll get to yet another landing page. This landing page, again, has some just helpful resources for you here and instructions. Once you are ready, you can click Open an Application here. It'll ask you to label your application, and it'll give you guidance for that. Then you will be directed to the main application page. So before we walk through some of the tasks, again, those helpful pages up here, we have a resources page, has some of the documentation I mentioned. It has videos for each section of the application where we talk through each section of the application in detail. And it also has links to our live webinars from this year. Again, all of this you can also access directly on our YouTube page. We also have, my Zoom screen is in the way. Here we go. An FAQ page. A lot of this is also currently up in our JIC inbox, away message. But if you want to reference any of our frequently asked questions, you can do so on this page. All right, going back to my application. Once you have created the account, you should see this Start or Continue button here. It'll tell you how many tasks you have completed. There are 9 total tasks of the application. The first of which is confirming your fair password. So click on this. This is the first most important step. If you don't enter this incorrectly, then you won't be able to see the remaining tasks on the application. You will just see what's called our invalid password task that has instructions on what to do if you enter an invalid fair password. We just talked about that, so I won't go through it, but please email us. If go in now, make sure you have your fair password. Email us if you don't. Once that is all set and you've entered it, You can use the left-hand pane here to navigate to different sections of the different tasks of the application. You'll see at the top here that there is a progress bar. Once you've completed one page, some of the tasks have one page, some of them have 2 pages. If they have 2 pages, you'll get a little 50% marker once you're done with one page, and you get 100% once you're done with all pages. The circles here next to each task also tell you if a task is complete or not. Once you are complete with the task, make sure you see that this is fully checked off and your progress bar up here is at 100%. So part 1, some pretty standard information here. A lot of this is used on the back end by our team, just to be able to have your contact information for a parent guardian, your school, that sort of thing. We do ask that you read through our rules as well as our parent guardian permission form that has an ethics statement that all students need to agree to before you get started. We ask for a few different versions of your name. We ask for your legal name. If you make it to the top 300 or finalist level, you're eligible for awards of $125 for top 300 and $500 for finalists. So we need your legal name for some of those payment forms. Your chosen name as you would like to be called. Again, if we're reaching out to you, we use this version of your name. We have your name for public materials as well. So as soon as you complete your application, you're an entrant in the competition, and we list your name on our website. We'll use this name as well if you make it further for the top 300 or finalist level as well on our website and in printed materials. Scrolling back up, we ask for your email address. We ask for a long-term email address as well. Again, if you want to give us something that's not a school address, we'll use that for future communications. Scrolling down, mailing address, languages, if you speak more than one, you can, or languages besides English, you can select all here. Some questions like this are helpful for our communications team. If you make it to that top 300 or finalist level, this helps kind of tell a more full story beyond your research project for any media opportunities. We ask if you're an alumni, your parent guardian information. This is an example when you have 2 pages to an application, so to a task. So you can save and continue editing if you just want to work on a little bit at a time, or you can click next. I recommend hitting save every now and again just to make sure whatever you filled in does get retained in the application. Once you hit next, you'll go over to the second page, and you can see now we have a 50% marker here on our progress bar. All of our school information for middle school teacher. This does need to be a teacher at the school that you were enrolled in for this past year, even if they are not the teacher or the adult that mentored you on your project. If you identify this teacher as your research mentor, you can say yes. If you don't, you can say no, and then you'll be asked about your project mentor. You can submit this project mentor's information. They will receive emails if you progress on in the competition as well. Some students might have competed in more than one of our affiliated fairs. So if you were nominated by more than one fair, you can enter that second fair's information here. So you'll click yes, then you need to enter the fair password for that second fair. This does not have any weight on your application, so it doesn't matter if you were nominated by one fair or 2 fairs. It doesn't matter if you were nominated by a state fair or a regional fair. We ask this information for tracking purposes to give credit to our fairs who have nominees enter. Again, if you have a team project, you want to select yes here. Tell us how many members of the team you have and enter in their information, even if they are not all opening applications. That's which that should have looked. If this happens and you accidentally hit yes and the team member is not going away, let us know. We'll fix that for you. Now that I'm done, I'm going to hit Mark as complete. You have to click Mark as complete on every task in order for it to save and for you to be able to submit it. So what you want to see is this green check mark on every task, and then you'll be ready to submit. All right, moving down to part 2, student experience. This is some basic demographic information about you and questions about your experience with research this year, just to give some context to your research project. You can look up your school here. Again, if you don't find your school, email us. We'll look at that for you. All of our questions, you can click prefer not to say as well. And if you make it to the top 300 or finalist level, you'll be able to update anything that you have here that you've entered here as well. We ask about, again, just some questions about your research project for context and your research experience. Sometimes our communications team will use this information for media purposes. And then you hit mark as complete, and this section is done. Moving on to part 3. So this is all about your project, and this is definitely going to be a bulk of the application. The first thing that you'll notice is actually I'm on page 2. So sometimes you might be looking for, hey, I thought I had to fill out a question about my project category, but I don't see it here anymore. You're probably just on the wrong page. So scroll all the way down to the bottom, hit previous, and then you'll get to the first page of the application. So select a category that best describes your project. We have a full list of all of our categories here with definitions. The word of advice here is to choose a project category that you want a subject matter expert in to read your project. So sometimes you might have more than one discipline. Most of our evaluators can read across categories as well. So don't worry too much about selecting the category here if you don't find an exact match to what you submitted or what you used for your regional fair. But that is the how you choose your project category. Project title, again, like Alex said, this doesn't have to be the same as what you entered at your local fair. We ask for a few different versions here. If you have any special characters, these fields won't retain the information of a special character well, so you can write it out here. For example, if you have a scientific name of a plant species, you can write that it should be in italics, right? And then we'll know how to format that properly for our materials. Remind us if this is a team project. And then moving down to a little bit of the more general questions about your project, you have the option for a project summary to submit an abstract. Some of you might have already done this for your local fair. You can use that abstract here. Or you can create an elevator pitch for your project. Most questions in this section do have sub-questions where it helps break down the main question for you and helps you just understand what you should be writing about. You're not required to answer every sub-question, but it's, again, just helpful, particularly for students who might not be as familiar with an abstract or how to write the project summary to break that down. Each of our questions in this section do have word limits. So we've said that at the top of the question, and then you also see a little tracker here once you start typing. And it'll count how many words you have. The inspiration for your project, what's important here is that you tell us if how you came up with your project idea. It's totally fine if you've used an external source or the help of an adult or mentor to kind of get started on your project. But tell us that in this section of the application. And if you did do that, tell us how you might have made it original, how you might have made that project your own. We ask this question just if you would like to share, or if you give us permission to share your summaries with media, if you make it to the top 300 level. We ask if this project was a continuation of a past year's research. If it was, you're going to be asked to describe how your current project builds off of that research. It's totally fine to have a continuation and to build off of past work, but for this year's project, you should have it should be different from what you've done previously, right? It could be changing your variables, it could be changing the way you test, you run your tests, it could be changing your prototype, right? Clearly state how you've changed your project in this section. Moving on, page 2 just has a bunch more about your application, about your project. Each of these, again, has these sub-questions that you can use to help define what you want to write about. One thing I'll point out is you can also reference any images or figures or tables in your visual aid, and there's an example in our walkthrough videos of how to do that. If you, for example, have a data chart that you want to refer to, you can name that chart 1 in your visual aid. And then as you're writing about your project here, you can say, see chart 1 in visual aid, and the evaluators and judges will know to refer to that image as they're reading this part of your application. Going through, just talking about your data analysis, what conclusions you reach. Again, this is where you can enter in any future directions if you'd like. What problems arose, if any, during experimentation. Sometimes things don't always go as expected, and it's important to address that if that is true for you. We want to know where you conducted your experimentation. Part of this is to help us with those science fair paperwork with that section of the application, to know where you conducted your research. If you've worked somewhere specific like a lab or workplace, we ask for that information here. You can select all that apply. Tell us about how you gained access to a research location if it wasn't just your school or home. And this question asks about who might have helped you with your science fair project. How did anyone else contribute? We know that science or engineering is not necessarily a solitary activity, and that's totally fine. We anticipate that you might have had a little bit of adult support, but you should talk about that in this question. So we ask about what is special equipment you might have used, who supervised or collaborated with you on your research, for example, parents or teachers or lab mentors. What role did a mentor play in your research if you worked at a lab? It's important to be very honest in this section. You don't want to overstate your own work. You can have help, and this project can still be totally your own. And you could have, done a really good and independent research project. But you should clearly answer these questions, and as well as mention any paid research programs or other research programs where you might have conducted your work. This is where you can add in any team members that might have worked on your project with you and talk about their contributions. If you have references, you can add them here. This is optional if you don't have any references. If you didn't do any for your local science fair, you might not have any to write here, and that's okay. All right, I'm gonna write mark is complete. Uh-oh. So in this case, I have an error, so it tells me that I have to check my answers before I can submit, because I didn't enter anything here. I need to put some text there, and then I also need to fill out some text here. Sometimes you'll see conditional questions pop up that you might not have noticed before. All right, visual aid. We already talked about the visual aid, so I'm going to mark this task as complete. I already have a file here. If you want to look at your file, you can always click this link, or you can click the preview button or download button here to make sure you've uploaded the right file. I do recommend doing that to make sure you've uploaded exactly what you want. Part 4 is our essay questions. So these are gonna go beyond your research project a little bit, right? The competition is not just about your research. To learn more about that, look at our past webinars. But this section will ask a few different things. It'll ask about your STEM story. So this gives a little bit more context about how you got involved in science fair, how you got involved in STEM. Are you enthusiastic about it? That is something that the judges and evaluators do look for. Your personal story, this is an optional question. If you went through the application and realize that there's, a piece of information that you didn't have a chance to talk about anywhere else, this is where you can do that. Sometimes that might be something about your background, an accomplishment, an obstacle, citing or circumstance that you feel like your application would not be complete if you didn't talk about. This is your space to do so. Again, this is completely optional. If you don't feel like there's anything worthwhile to add to your application, then you don't have to complete this essay. And then we have a solve a problem essay. So we know that you might not have a lot of background information on this particular topic, and that's totally fine. We do anticipate that you do a little bit of research, but the main goal of your answer here should be to explain how you approach something that you don't know a lot about. Kind of like thinking how you might, make a research plan for your science fair project. So we're going to hit mark as complete here. Go on to part 5. Part 5 is more information just about you and your interests. So it's a way for the judges and evaluators to get to know you a little bit better. And our communications team looks at this a lot, again, if you make it to the top 300 or finalist level, to help tell your story. So you can go through this. There's just all about your extracurriculars, sports, instruments you might play, any other things that aren't listed. If you have participated in any science training institutes or research programs or summer programs, you can list those here. And you definitely want to list them here if you've worked on your research project in those programs. If you scroll, you can say that this was a Thermo Fisher JIC project that you worked on your Thermo Fisher JIC project in this program, and if it was a paid program or not. If you have any volunteering experiences to talk about and what career you're interested in. Almost done. All right, we're going to look at the science fair paperwork section next. Research experimentation, if you entered in anything in part 3, it'll show up here. If you want to add to that, you can add to that here. If there's nothing else to say, then you can click no. If you used any of the following in your research, you should select all that apply here. Depending on what you click, you might have some additional questions pop up. For example, if I clicked human participants, I used a survey, then I'm going to get a question down here that says, because you worked with human participants, please answer the following questions. The goal of all of these questions, again, is just to explain how you were being safe when you conducted your research. So we want to know about who approved your project, what paperwork you might have completed, and any review or permission process. You're gonna also enter in the start and end dates of your application of your project. Our rules state that your research has to happen within a 12-month continuous period from, I believe it's January of the previous year until the application deadline. You can tell us if this was a continuation project. If it was, you're going to fill out this form, and that just helps us clearly see what changes you made to all parts of your project, from the research question to hypothesis to your methods. Then the big part of this section is your science fair paperwork. So we have listed examples here of the Regeneron ISEF forms. You might not have used these forms. Again, biggest rule of thumb is to submit whatever you completed for your local fair. You do not need to submit any or create or fill out any new forms for this section. We only want to see what you used at your local fair. And again, if you don't have that, if you say yes, that I do have these forms, you'll be asked to upload them. If you say yes, I don't have a copy, you'll be asked to upload a letter. And if you said, yes to something else here. For example, I'm going to click vertebrate animals, but I don't have any forms. I didn't fill out anything. You can still submit that letter. Again, it should be completed by an adult that approved your project. If you didn't use any of those things in the list above, and I'm just going to clear this all out so that I don't have to submit anything else. If you just say I did not use any of the above and I did not complete any paperwork for my fair, then you are good to go and you don't need to upload any additional forms. The last one, your parent or guardian should sign the parent permission form. You can find a PDF converter linked here or Google it or use the suggestions that Alex mentioned. I've already completed that, so I'm going to say mark is complete, and now I'm ready to submit my application. Everything is complete here. I said 9 out of 9 tasks are done, and now this button is green, so I can hit submit. It's going to ask me if I want to review. You can definitely review the full application before you submit if you'd like. I recommend doing that. Again, definitely make sure all your uploads have uploaded successfully and are the right files that you wanted to upload, and then you can hit submit. Now, once you've hit submit, you will see that your application has been submitted. What you can do now, if you would like to edit your application, go back to My Applications, go back to View, and then here, in any one of these parts, you can click on a part, and you can say Edit. You do not want to say Reset. That will wipe all the information. But if you click Edit, then you will be able to edit the fields now, again, to your application. Right now, I can't see they're all closed, but if I hit Edit, they are all opened again. If you do edit your application, make sure you scroll down, hit mark as complete, and confirm that it has saved as completed. And if you want to download any individual tasks, you can do that here, or you can download your full application up at the top, right there. And that is it. So I hope that helped show you that it's still possible to complete the application in the next couple days. There are a lot of questions, but if you manage your time, you can definitely get it done between now and Wednesday's deadline. So I know there have been a ton of questions coming into the chat, and Alex has been answering a bunch. Alex, anything you want to call out now as I take a look?
It'd be great to hear a little bit more about what should be on the visual aid, how things should be cited on the visual aid, how many graphics should be on each page, just a little bit more detail about that.
Sure, yeah. So graphics, the number of graphics on the visual aid, we recommend 3 to 4. Again, that's a recommendation. Really, what you want to make sure is that you're not cramming the visual aid. If you think about printing it out on a piece of paper, can you read it, right? Or do you have to like hold it up like this or use a magnifying glass? If it's any of the latter, you want to parse that down a little bit. You want to take out some information and highlight only the main visuals of your project. In terms of citations, it can be a very simple citation, but each figure does need to be cited individually. So say I made all graphs of my project. Under each graph, I would say image created by researcher or image created by student. Something to say that this is something that you have made yourself. If you've used an external resource, put the website of that external resource, put the journal name, the journal article. There's information about how to cite in the rules of the visual aid as well in our official rules document. I would go ahead and look for guidance there. That'll tell you exactly what we'd like to see for those citations. Anything else?
Thank you, Reba. Another one that'd be great to hear you talk about a little bit more would be what can change between when you get nominated and when you submit the application on your project. Just a little bit more to reiterate that.
Yes, sure. So essentially nothing should change from your project, right? You can only add new data. So say, for example, I was looking at how a particular plant grew with under certain light conditions. I can't change those light conditions. I can't change the plant I'm looking at. But say I collected data over the period of 7 days for my local fair. But I want to collect more data. I want to look at it over the course of 2 weeks instead, so 14 days. You can add that additional data to your application, but you can't change anything else. So you're really only looking at more data without changing your methodology, without changing your research question, without changing your prototype. Anything that you are thinking of changing, right, or building off of from what you've submitted and competed at your local fair should be included in the future directions part of your application. I know a question that I saw earlier that I didn't mention when I was going through the application, but about team projects. I know I mentioned that the abstract and visual aid can be the same between team members. It does not have to be the same. You're definitely more than welcome to submit individual ones. You should be working on those essays independently. We know that some of the information is going to be similar. You obviously were looking at the same, you were asking the same question. Probably had the same, you should have had the same hypothesis. But how you're writing those down in your application should, be in your own words. Continuing to look through some stuff.
Another one that has come up a couple times would be, and you talked about this when you were walking through, but if you did not submit any paperwork for your fair, should you write a letter? What do you need to do if you did not have any paperwork?
So use the science fair paperwork section as your guide. If you didn't have any paperwork, you might not have needed any paperwork, right? There's a checklist that says, I worked with XYZ, I worked with human participants or vertebrate animals or bacteria. If you didn't work with any of those things, you might not have needed any paperwork at your fair. So you can say, I don't have any paperwork, and you're good to go. If you did work with some of those things, you're going to be asked to upload a letter. So that's what you want to do. You want to get ideally your teacher or maybe your science fair director to upload that for you. I know in some cases, your school might already be out for the season. Your teacher might not be at your school anymore. In those cases, you can get a parent or guardian to sign off for you. But in that letter, it should clearly state what, if any, paperwork you completed at your fair, that you did not complete paperwork, but this is, who signed off on your project, and this is who looked at it before you did your research or who supervised you while you were conducting your research. All of that information should be in that letter. But again, if you didn't work with any of those things that are in the list in part 6, you might not have needed paperwork, and that's okay. You don't need to complete any new paperwork at this time. We only want to see the paperwork that you submitted at your local fair. All right, we'll take a few more questions. Again, for specific questions about your visual aid or your science fair paperwork, you can email us. For the visual aid, really just try not to overthink it too much. What you want to do is focus on what we say is not allowed in the rules, right? So things that are not allowed are any of those external links. Images of people need to be blurred. There's a few more things there. But anything that's outside of that do not include section are general recommendations. So you can use that just as your guidance. All right. I think we've gotten a lot of questions answered. So with that, we will wrap this up. So thank you all so much for joining us. I hope this helped answer any of those last minute burning questions. And I hope if you have not yet submitted your application that you will do so within the next couple days. And if you are thinking about opening it, that you do. If you haven't yet opened the application, definitely do so today so you can get a full look at it, start getting your words out on paper. A recommendation we have is to talk aloud, answer those questions out loud like you're talking to a friend or a parent or guardian. Record yourself talking, and that'll help you start getting words down on paper. So if you have any more questions, as always, email us at jic@societyforscience.org. We will get back to you as soon as we can. And good luck, everyone, as you finish up working on the application. Also want to say congratulations to all of you, no matter what you do, if you complete the application or not. It's a huge honor just to earn the nomination to compete. So you should be super proud of yourselves. You were in the top 10% of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students across the country competing in science fair, which is no small feat. So give yourselves a pat on the back. If you submit that application, hope you do something to celebrate, and you can look forward to a prize package coming your way this summer. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your nights.